Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The celestial compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Beal. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Beal.
Greetings, Earthlings. This is Kathy Beal of Celestial Compass, EmpowermentUnlimited.net, and for those of you who hang out on YouTube, Professional Aquarian. Welcome to another episode of Celestial Compass, and we're going to start, as always, with a brief update of the forecast for the month of March. Highly volatile month. The thing I want you to keep in mind is it's the last month this year with no retrogrades. So there's nothing out there in the cosmos that's got banana peels in your way or tripping you up, although there is one influence that may be slowing you down and telling you to act cautiously, and that is, of course, Saturn. Big events coming up this month that are worth paying attention to are the Pisces new moon on the 10th, which is going to have an assist from Uranus, the planet of enlightenment and surprises. So it's a good time for dreaming a new vision of your reality and seeing what can flow out of that. Also for breaking some enmeshments that you might still have. And then we've also got the equinox on the 19th in the US, on the 20th in many other parts of the globe. And this is when the sun enters the sign of Aries. And this time we're going to have a lot of energy in hyperactive, unpremeditated, self-starting Aries at the same time as still continuing influences in the sign of Pisces, which kind of makes us all sort of spacey and interconnected, feeling aware that there's something bigger going on in our lives than just what our mortal will wants, which kind of ties into what we're going to talk about in a second. And all of this is leading to the beginning of eclipse season. Near the end of the month, 24th, 25th, we have a lunar eclipse in Libra, continuing the theme of reshaping our relationship agreements, continuing themes that have been kicked off for the past year and will continue for the next year, and leading into the big solar eclipse in April, which I think everyone's going to be able to feel, no matter whether it's hitting something in your chart or not. The one at the end of March, maybe not so much. At any rate, you can always follow my forecasts at omtimes.com. My monthly and moon casts are there, and my monthly, moon, and weekly podcasts are at empowermentunlimited.net and also at the Professional Aquarian YouTube channel. And with that, I am now pleased to welcome our guest for this episode, author and teacher Mike Bais, who has written a new contemporary guide to Kaballah, Paths on the Tree of Wisdom. He was born and lives in the Netherlands. His esoteric training comes from the Western esoteric tradition and the Toledano, I hope I said that right, Kaballah. He trained in this tradition with Zev ben Shimon Halevi, who's also known as Warren Kenton, the UK-born author and teacher. His professional background is as a physiotherapist, counselor, and university teacher. He's also the author of 2 books, A Kabbalistic View on Science, Parts 1 and 2. Welcome so much, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your show. Wonderful.
I am wondering if you could explain how your path to this tradition. What interested you? How did you first learn about it? What's your origin story?
Well, that goes back quite a long time ago. I mean, I'm 52 now, but still, it really began with childhood and being brought up as a Catholic in a quite a loose way, but nevertheless, I had an intrinsic feeling and connection with something divine, at least, and I had ideas about this. They were not always in conformity with what the church was teaching. So gradually in life, I was seeking and finding things. And the first thing that I found that I thought this is in complete um, connection, or even is complete the same thing as what I was thinking and experiencing as a little kid, was the Western esoteric tradition, and especially the Kabbalistic teachings.
And how did you stumble on this? Did you meet someone or read something, or you just gravitated towards something in a bookstore?
I guess that a lot of people recognize what I'm saying when you just have to find out by trial and error, and you think from one time to another, from one moment to another, oh, now I have it. But then you find out, no, the seeking goes on, the path goes on. So it was basically when I stumbled upon, and some listeners may be familiar with this, on the Golden Dawn within the Western esoteric tradition, this occult lodge, occult organization. And I was the most fascinated by the Kabbalah in their curriculum, which is very hermetic. And that's all fine, but I found it at the same time a bit limited in its whole metaphysical basis. So I thought I need to know more about this. So that was in the 90s, the early, the end of the 90s. So I thought, okay, I'm going to look further, and then I found a telephone number somewhere, and that was from Halevi, and I phoned him, and I thought, this is such a huge organization. I'll probably end up with someone on the phone, like a secretary, and but it was him, and he said, well, tomorrow I'm doing a lecture in Regent's College in London, so if you want to be there. And I just flew over. I met him, and I thought, this is it, really. And not just the teaching, but for me personally, also the man was a revelation. And I can say it really was a friendship between us as well. And yeah, I had a wonderful 25 years, I think, in his company. So that
There
was
are
great.
no such thing as coincidence. No such
Definitely
thing as
not.
coincidence.
Yes.
Now, you weren't just professionally a student at this point. There were
Mm,
aspects of your life going on in what people would call the real world, right? There was a parallel here. You were pursuing another career or a career.
mm. Yes, I at the same time, of course, you need to make a living. So I was a physiotherapist, had my own practice, teaching in university, and all that also worked eventually in my favor because um, besides the metaphysical, to know the physical world well through anatomy, physiology, biology, etc., which I was teaching in university, those things just blended together so beautifully. And that was eventually the basis of my writing those two books that I self published about Kabbalah and science. And this whole enterprise, this whole initiative was in the light of Warren Kenton's work because he tried to bring Kabbalah to the contemporary world of now. Although he was a Jew himself, he said Kabbalah is universal. It's not just for a particular group. Everyone, should have access to this knowledge. and whatever background, whatever religion, and I love that idea, and I support it completely and fully. So that's why I started to write these two books as well. Yeah.
And it sounds, I can identify, it resonates very much to me,
Mm.
creating a bridge between something very logical and scientific and worldly based and
Yes.
something that is not, because that is also what I do. I say I have built my life and my career on the bridge between the rational mind and intuition. So it's a
Yes.
very similar approach, and I think there's a grounding that comes from that. Would you? Has that been your experience, that you can go into this and still feel like your feet are here and that you're in your
Oh
body?
yes, very much. And from at least what I have understood from Kabbalah is that everything starts here within the body. And it is a vehicle or a vessel of a spiritual nature. It's not just an earthly body that we have inherited, not just a biological machine. So this is the point of departure, is the earth and our physical body. And it's not outside of the equation of the whole spiritual enterprise and the seeking. So I hope that answers your question. But
Oh, yes, very much so. So, and
yeah.
this latest book, Paths on the Tree of Wisdom, is an outgrowth of your work in the earlier two books, right? Or it's an expansion of the concept. Basically, what inspired you to write a third book on this topic, basically?
Well, honestly, Kathy, I was working on a third book that I was about to self-publish, um, which was again like a parallel topic, the Round Table and the Holy Grail and Kabbalah. And I was well on my way. Actually, the manuscript is there. I mean, it's still not edited, but it's there. And then all of a sudden, this is about 2.5 years ago, I was called by Watkins
Oh,
Books in London, and out of the blue, I was actually in the UK teaching in Hawkwood College, and they said, well, we were informed through another author and teacher. She is called Naomi Ozanik, and she recommended you to write a book, and we are looking for an author to write an introduction to the Kabbalah. So that's where it started. So for me, it came as a surprise. I wasn't looking to write this book, but it found me, and it was a wonderful cooperation to work with Watkins, to be honest. And so we came to this book, which is like an overview of different streams within the Kabbalah tradition. So the viewers who may not know about this, but like in Christianity or Islam or Buddhism, you have different streams. So it's not a book about Toledano Kabbalah per se. It's about all kinds of different streams there and how to apply it to your daily life.
so different. Would it be correct to say that there are different systems, different ways that you can look at the progression of the tree of life?
Definitely. I mean, like in yoga, you have bhakti yoga, that's the devotional way. You have Yan yoga, the way of the head, and you have karma yoga, the way of action. It's the same within Kabbalah. So different schools have different accents there. Some are very orthodox and very theoretical, and others are very much more active and practical.
There's so many ways we could take this.
Mm.
I'm very curious. What initially got my attention when I heard from the publisher about this book was correspondences with, of course, astrology. Now, I'm aware of correspondences with tarot. That's something also that I teach, and you do weave those in.
Yeah.
Um, so other esoteric traditions, I guess, is what I'll start with.
Yeah.
How if someone has some understanding, say, of astrology, how will
Mm.
they find that it applies, or that they'll find correspondences in Kabbalah?
Yes, well, I think again, Halevi did a great job by implementing and combining the astrological knowledge. And I think he was quite a good astrologer himself with the Tree of Life. And so he placed the different planets and zodiacal signs and aspects on the tree. So I can give you an example. I put behind me the tree of life. You may not be able to see it completely. I can just get out of the picture a little bit. But the tree of life has different aspects of the human being. So it's also a portrait or an image of the constellations within you or your own birth chart. For example, here below on the tree, this is Malchut, which is your body. This is your ascendant. And Yasod, the foundation here, is the influence of the moon. So where your moon is, you can put your particular sigil or sign in there. The same here with Hod, which is associated with Mercury. And then opposite is Netzach here, called in Hebrew. This is Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, higher up, Pluto, and Saturn. Hokmah will be Uranus, and there up is Neptune. So if you, for example, know where your sun is, most people know this, then you know what is in your Tiferet, at the center of your own being. But of course, there is a self in the psyche, but there's also an ego. So the moon corresponds to that particular level of your psyche that we would call in clinical psychology the ego. Of course, Mercury is the thinking mind. This is the more feeling mind, the Venusian mind, or heart, whatever you like to call that. So the planets are actually very easily to combine with the metaphysical ideas of these circles or sephirot. And I have seen it many times. I have people who know their chart in the more traditional circle, which functions, of course, perfectly well. But if you put it in the tree and you know something about the tree of life, it becomes also very interesting. You see different relationships there.
Because there are these different energy paths.
Exactly, yeah. You see triads, you see different columns or pillars. So I made the other day, I made a birth chart for someone, put it in the tree, and like the whole left pillar was full of Aquarius. And you can see, what does that really mean? You know, they have a left pillar. What does that mean metaphysically for you and me? And then in those particular planets, you have these signs of Aquarius. So that makes it quite interesting. Another perspective on it.
And then there's not natal energy on the other side. I'm assuming if there was a preponderance on one side,
Yes,
that's very interesting.
it is.
All right. So you have, well, jumping around here, you say you are making this information accessible in a way that people can use it in their daily lives. So this is one form, having a different understanding of your own personal wiring by putting your own chart into the tree.
Yes.
Do you have another thing, something you do specifically in the book is give a meditation for pretty much every major point you make, more than just every chapter. There are some that have meditations throughout the chapter. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, easily, in the sense of that I think that whatever you practice, not just Kabbalah, is, I think it's recommendable that we are not just doing our practice like inside a room on a cushion or on a chair, and then we just go about our day. But to implement and to integrate the knowledge, and that we can do exercises while we are moving through life, and be conscious of it. That's what I try to do. So, for example, that's why I put a lot of emphasis on the idea of breathing exercises, which I think were quite forgotten over the time. It was all with the emphasis on meditation. But yeah, I'll go ahead.
No, because I have not run into the notion of breath work with Kabbalah before, but you're saying it's intrinsic, or it fits.
Very much. I mean, in all the classical texts, like the Zohar is a book and the Bahir is a book, these things are mentioned. The Kabbalah is full of the idea of the Holy Spirit, or the Ruach HaKadosh. And she, it's a feminine reference there, she is actually the power of the divine moving the cosmos. And our breath, our own physical breath, is an equivalent of that force. It's not just a physical breath only. So that's why I put in the book, in between or within these exercises, the question, when you do these exercises, do I breathe or am I being breathed?
Yes, that gives you something to think about right there.
Yes, and an interesting answer may follow. So the breath is the thing in Kabbalah, the phenomena that connects all the different worlds or layers and levels within the tree of life. In other words, within your whole being. So, and of course, the easiest thing to do is to breathe. It goes by itself, but then to be conscious of it and to know what it is you're breathing and who is breathing through you. Those are quite deep, fundamental metaphysical things. And at the same time, it's there all the time. So, yeah.
I know there was more that you want to actually lead us through something, and I would like to save that until after the break.
Right.
But to get up into it, I'll just introduce another topic, and we'll finish it on the other side of the break, and that is other correspondences that you set up. Now, there are many mentions of tarot in your book with different spots on the tree.
Exactly. Well, the diagram here behind me is, everyone can find it on the internet. And this is a particular tree of life, a diagram from the more Hermetic Kabbalistic tradition. Like I told you in the beginning, which is very much coming from the Golden Dawn and the later the lodges that came out of the Golden Dawn later, like Dion Fortune, Gareth Knight, within the Western esoteric tradition. And they also use the Tree of Life as a correspondence diagram. So everything you can find within it. And that's also its power. So the 22 lines in between these circles, they seem to correspond very neatly with the 22 major arcana of the tarot.
That can't be a coincidence. And actually, at this point, we're going to pause.
Good.
Hold this thought, everyone. Come back, and you'll find out more about 22 and the tarot and the Kabbalah.
Let's do it.
Om Times TV.
Want help with your own celestial compass? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, for Astro Insight forecasts for each week, month, and new and full moon. Want to explore the personal impact? Make a decision? Understand another person? It is possible. Click the Services tab to book a personal session with me. That address again? empowermentunlimited.net.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Celestial Compass. We are talking today with Mike Bais, who is the teacher of Kaballah and author of the new book, Paths on the Tree of Wisdom. And just before the break, we were starting to talk about the correspondences between tarot and the Tree of Life. So
Exactly.
please continue. You were saying that the Hermetic diagram that you have, the diagram you have up out of the Hermetic tradition, has 22 lines, which is in fact the number of major trumps, major arcana. It cannot be a coincidence.
Yes, so you have 10 circles and then 22 lines or paths in between. So it's called, because of that, the 32 paths of wisdom. Now, the 22 paths were also seen as probably corresponding to the 22 major arcana, like I just said. But nobody really knows where these 22 cards can be located. So what the Golden Dawn did, they, according to numbers on the path, so if you have the 10 circles, sorry, I'm just going a bit up here, then the next path, 11, is this one. So the first in line of the major arcana is the Fool, so it was placed there. On the other side, you have path number 12, and there the Mage, or the Magus, was located. So as the paths were just adding up, going down the tree, from the cards of the major trump were being located there. That's one way of looking at it, but I always emphasize it's not the only way. You can also put the major arcana, for example, for meditation purposes, on certain Sephiroth. Mm-hmm. For example, the Hanged Man is always placed on this path, here, between Hod and Gevura. But you can also place it on Tiferet. And if you know the tree and you know that card, at least some of its meaning, you can say, all right, what do I need to sacrifice voluntarily at this very moment from myself to come to a new insight, a new revelation? So there are so many different ways to use the tarot cards in respect to the Tree of Life, and not just put them on the paths as they were shown to us by the Golden Dawn system. That would be too narrow. That would be too limited to use them. Yeah.
Well, and your book certainly shows like a panorama of ways of different systems that will fit very nicely and make a lot of sense. And one of them is, well, there are a number that are scientific. I was fascinated. Genetics can fit into this. So you're actually seeing the human body itself reflected in the Tree of Life. Can you talk some about that?
Well, first of all, if you look at this diagram, the normal Tree of Life, it has 4 worlds within it, 4 different levels. And one of the worlds is Asya, which is the physical body. And then you have a psychological level, a world, a spiritual level, and a divine world. But eventually they are all within each other or one another. Halevi has put this in an extended version of this tree called Jacob's Ladder. which for a beginner is quite complicated. But if you persist on it and you understand it, it's an awesome thing to study and to integrate. So yes, the physical body and genetics is for me a vital part of our spirituality, of our metaphysical seeking. And well, as there are more and more researches going on within the field of science, I think it is very interesting to explore what's going on in regard to spirituality. If they can just support each other, or they can show what is going on in our consciousness, yeah, that's very worthwhile.
I'm so sorry. I got kind of distracted there. Are there
Mhm.
other occurrences that that jump out at you that people who are not really familiar with this tradition would be surprised to know that you like what other surprises, what other mind expanding experiences of Kabbalah can people find in your book?
I think the endless metaphysical correspondences, really, that whatever one is doing, whatever tradition in a spiritual way or religious way, but also whatever philosophy you have, that this diagram, the way that I present it at least, is so universal and integrates everything, that you can put your personal life and whatever you're doing, from a professional background or a religious, spiritual path that you're walking, that anything can be placed on this tree. And it's still for me also astonishing. That's why I can write about science or the round table, or as an esoteric priest, I can write about deep Christian metaphysical ideas, and still use this diagram to more clearly transmit it and bring it across. Yeah,
So it fits everything. It sounds like it's the entire universe in
it
one
is,
system.
as far as we can fathom the idea of what the universe is. But yes, it seems that nothing can escape this simple diagram up here. Yes, exactly. That's why they say it contains the mind of God, and this is the image of the mind of God, and we are made in that image, so we can find all that knowledge within ourselves. You know, we don't have to forget about books or teachers and whatever. But on the other hand, this is what they say in Kabbalah: the Torah, the teaching, is already being given to you at birth. So this is a way of remembering what was given to you at the very beginning.
And your meditations are one avenue for people experiencing, like it's almost like taking your mind out of it and experiencing the reality and the truth of these various concepts that you've been talking about.
Yes, exactly.
And did you have one that you wanted to, or a process you wanted to present?
Well, we could, yes, of course. We could, for example, together do the Kabbalistic invocation, which is also in the book, which is a way of starting a session, whether alone, you start a meditation session, or with a group, and you can go into this invocation to prepare yourself from a psychological point of view. Yes. I
Okay,
would be happy to do that.
great, wonderful, thank you.
Okay, good. So, of course, it is like going within. So we may close our eyes as we do this, and all our listeners, of course, as well.
Not if
And
you're driving, please.
yes, exactly. And so we start by moving within with our consciousness, and become aware of your breathing in and out. And as you follow the rhythm and the movement of your breath, you come closer to your physical body. That body which is always in the now, in between the past and the future. Everything which is behind you and before you. You come into this unique moment in time and space. And imagine that you are breathing through your whole being. This space that you are. And in this space, let us gather together and let us draw together to form a vessel to catch the dew of heaven and to rise up and go into that holy place of meeting, and gathering there with the companions of the light. And let the veil of heaven be drawn back. Hear this. Malkut Yasod Hod Netzach Tiferet Gevura Chesed Bina Hokma Keter Adonai El Chai Shaddai Yahweh Elohim Eheye Asher Eheye. If it be thy will, let thy Holy Spirit descend upon us today, so that we may know thy presence. Amen. And traditionally then 1 or 2 candles are being lighted. So this is a form, it's not the form of an invocation. One can write one's own invocation. As long as that we know what we're doing, of course, and what we are calling in or invoking. And what I just did as well within the invocation is naming the names of the circles or the Sephiroth going up. And as you do, you rise in consciousness and build up this metaphysical structure of consciousness within yourself. Basically for ourselves and the people who are you're with, to ideally concentrate ourselves within this center of self-consciousness and spiritual responsibility and conscience. That is then the point of psychological departure for a Kabbalah session.
And the session might go in any direction. Would you set it in advance, set your idea of what you're going to pursue, or would you go with what seems to be speaking to you at the moment? Does it vary?
Most of the time I have like the groups that I teach here in Holland, in this room where I am at the moment for about 12 or 13 years, I have most of the time like a theme. For example, last year it was Exodus, the book Exodus. So how do you travel from a state of slavery, Egypt, so to speak, and you go out and find your own liberation? It's a wonderful book in its own metaphor to do this. But of course, during the trip and all the sessions, which may take like half a year, in these sessions, of course, there's also room for inspiration and spontaneity within the sessions. Yes, of course.
That would make complete sense. All right. So, so you have essentially given people a guidebook that they can use to start
Yes.
this journey or this approach. Or what would you want? What would you hope the reader would come away from the book with? That's a clumsy sentence structure.
Yeah, I said with the main editor of Watkins that if someone would be, first of all, inspired, and secondly, that one could have the idea, now I have enough knowledge, just enough to keep on going, to find my own way with others or solitary, on your own way, But that is my hope, really, that one finds inspiration and the knowledge and the courage to move on.
And you do, I mean, it for someone who doesn't know a lot about this system, at the beginning, the prevalence of Hebrew terminology can be a bit overwhelming. That's just a commentary on educational background outside of Europe, I think. But or people not studying the classics much anymore. But it has an effect that is very actually Neptunian. It is like water hitting a rock, slowly, slowly, slowly eroding. And your book does manage to get points across. I don't know, I wouldn't say necessarily with repetition, but I would encourage people to stick through this and read it, because you will almost by osmosis pick up something that will have meaning to you, whether you're a science geek or an astrology nerd, or you know the cards, or simply you've seen this this tree being bandied about
Yes.
for years. So for next steps for people, if someone is interested, where would you point them? I mean, if they're around, if they're in the Netherlands, they could come specifically with you, but what other suggestions do you have? Do you teach online ever, or is it always in person?
Well, yes, honestly, my preference is to teach in person. That's why I travel sometimes about to the UK or elsewhere on invitation. But I do teach online all over the world. I have individual students, and sometimes we gather together in a certain group. So I'm very open if people are interested to contact me, and to individually, or they can join an online group at the very moment. Yes, that's possible. Yeah.
And other avenues that people might take, your two earlier books, how would the information in there give them a deeper or a different background?
Yes. Well, honestly, for a beginner, my first two books are not that accessible, because I've written them, like I said earlier, with or in the same light as Halevi did. So to specialize in a certain topic, which is science, like quantum physics or neuroplasticity, which are quite difficult subjects in themselves, and then to combine them with Kabbalah. So these books are really written for the Kabbalist and not for the beginner.
Not for the beginner.
So this new book, the Watkins book, is much better, and it's a perspective or a way to start. And I know that there are other books which use much more Hebrew and sometimes complex ideas. So I try to, I have tried to leave it out as much as possible. Yeah. But sometimes they help.
Well, no, it's part of the system, so it's important that people know that. Now, I am intrigued by what you said earlier about correspondences with the Round Table and the Grail.
Yeah.
Do you see a future for that book? Do you intend to do something with it?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be there. As long as I live, I will make an effort to manifest it. It has been close to my heart, the whole subject. Like I said, when I was a little kid, it spoke to me, the whole archetypal world around Camelot and the Grail. So, and I've seen it as gradually as a system, again, as a spiritual metaphysical story, which you can live through, and it teaches us as the same way as the tree of life does. So it's a wonderful way of working, and that's why within the Circle of Avalon, the name of my own esoteric school, this is a stream in itself. I teach Toledano Kabbalah and the mysteries of the Round Table.
Oh, that makes sense then. That's why you chose that name.
Yes.
And you've of
Yeah.
course been to Glastonbury. Right?
I'm going there next week again. Yes.
And what
Yeah.
did you have an actual like visceral physical reaction the first time you went? A sense of a reality being superimposed perhaps on the physical space?
Oh yeah, many times, definitely. Yeah, of course, especially at the different power points, or how do you say that? The Tor, the tower, St. Michael's Tower. So that's corresponding with my name, and the abbey, and the little chapel there, the Magdalena Chapel, in which I do Holy Mass for years now. I will do it coming Sunday as well. Yeah, those are magnificent places to enter into. They have been building up energetically these places for many years by serious practitioners, and yeah.
So when you actually walk into it's like you're walking into an energy field of information.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, at the same time, Glastonbury is also a gathering place of many different people, with all due respect. So different energies are also hitting in there
Oh
and
yeah.
gathering.
You gotta be
So
careful.
you have to be sometimes a bit very discriminative and discerning about what you let in, and and whatnot. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to do there. Yeah, but it's again, it's a wonderful place, and yeah, I'm running this round table for also about 8 years, and it's endless. The material you can have, the things you can do with the round table and its stories is just a beautiful thing to do. Yeah.
Would you say that this is your favorite avenue for continuing to explore Kabbalah?
Um, in a sense, it is. I have done one seminar years ago in Hawkwood College, and it was called Kabbalah and the Round Table. And there were quite some Kabbalists, people who were really knew their stuff, and they said, through the round table, my eyes opened, because I've seen the tree now in so many different ways, and it led really to another experience of the tree and of myself. And that's the beautiful thing. The round table really is a call to action. While the diagram, sometimes Kabbalah can be a bit static. What do I do with the knowledge in daily life? But then comes the sword out of the stone, for example, that story, and your own inner kingship or queenship, for that matter. What does it mean? And we can explain it through the tree of life, not just from a mythological, symbolic perspective, but also what does it mean for you as a person? So that's just a wonderful dimension there, yeah, to add.
There's a huge, expansive worldwide interest in this story, so I suspect you
I
have quite an audience,
know.
and I hope this book does find its way into publication. I keep checking the time here.
I'll let you know.
We still have a little time. Um, uh, so do you have any other projects you're currently working on?
Well, this one was the major one, this latest book, and like with you, this is a promotion period. So I'm going to the UK coming week. I'm going to Atlantis Bookshop in London to do a book launch there, and do in the Library of Avalon in Glastonbury.
Ooh.
Exactly. And then a Holy Mass on Sunday. It's all fully booked, unfortunately, but now you're asking, so I'm just explaining what's going to happen, and which is based upon well, where I come from, which is the ASA, the Apostolic Succession of Arimathea, which is a very mystical church or stream. And it's a mass based upon the ideas and the gospel of Mary Magdalene. So the liturgy is a conversation or a dialogue between Christ and Magdalene, which is a beautiful thing to do. Yes, and then later in April, I'll be returning again to the UK to one of my favorite spots, which is Hawkwood College, and there I do a 3-day seminar on Kaballah and this book.
And for those of us who are geographically challenged, where in the UK is this college?
The college is in Stroud, which is in the Cotswold. It's a little city, just like a bit diagonally above Bristol. So going west from London, and it's in a beautiful countryside. It's quite a big house there in the forest. Used to be a Steiner house, an anthroposophical establishment there.
Oh, yes. So it's got a long pedigree.
Exactly, of art and yeah, all kinds of things, and of course the esoteric. It was actually where Gareth Knight from the Western esoteric tradition started to join with his groups, where from a lot of other teachers actually start teaching there. Also, like R.J. Stewart, I don't know if you know him, or Mike Harris, David Goddard, or the Matthews, Caitlin and John Matthews, who have written loads about the Grail and the Round Table. So it has, or it was at least, a center of a lot of esoteric activity there. Yeah.
I can see why you fit and why you're drawn to it. And the Cotswolds have their own energy anyway, so that sounds like a magical place.
Definitely, yes. And it was the place where Halevi, Zev Ben Shimon Halevi, my Kabbalah teacher, would have his Kabbalistic summer school every year. And that was really a happening. It was 5 days. People were coming from all over the planet, from Japan, the US, South America. And so in the light of his teachings, I'm also trying to do my own seminar for the last couple of years, since 2017.
With this background, it makes complete sense that Watkins sought you out for this book. You do seem to be uniquely placed for it. And I've really enjoyed hearing your everything that you've had to say today. I've appreciated your time greatly. Are there what would you hope someone would come away, like parting words of wisdom, knowledge, encouragement for whoever is listening to this?
Well, like I'm trying to describe or bring across in the book, is that our spiritual life is not just something happening, sitting on a chair in front of a candle, however that important that may be, but it really should happen in and through life. So our living with other beings and creatures on this planet, for me, that's the ultimate spiritual quest. It should happen there. Or like Halevi would always say, the workshop is outside.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Please tell people where your websites are. Where can they find you?
Oh, yeah. Well, the first one is www.circleofavalon.nl. So that's from the Netherlands, but it is all in English, of course. And the other one is KabbalahMysticalSchool.com, which is only about Kabbalah. And Circle of Avalon is about all the things that I do.
And the book again is Paths on the Tree of Wisdom, just published by Watkins from the UK, and it seems to be widely available, right? It's already
everywhere. Yes, exactly.
Everywhere. Well, thank you very, very much for your time. I wish you great success with this book, and it sounds like you have an extremely enjoyable couple of weeks ahead of you, if nothing else.
I do.
Wonderful. And everyone, remember, you can find me at empowermentunlimited.net and also at omtimes.com, where there is a guide to Mercury retrograde, which is waiting for us just on the other side of April. And my forecasts are also at my site, empowermentunlimited.net, and my YouTube channel, The Professional Aquarian. So Thanks a bunch, and I hope everyone stays calm and sane and make use of the forward-facing energies that we've got coming left this month before major excitement is erupting all around us that we will be reacting to. So be proactive now and head in a direction that makes sense to you. Get your life. No one ever gets their life in order, but pay attention to what you can now, because very soon you will be hearing noises and jumping and running. So everyone, be safe, and I will talk to you again in a couple of weeks. Bye now.